Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the special meeting of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment for Tuesday, March 29th, 2022. Ms. Stephanie Green, please call the roll.
Mayor Jones,
Present.
Comptroller Green,
Here.
President Reed,
Here.
all present.
Great. We will start with the agenda of the item deferred at the last regular meeting on March 23rd, which is item number 22-077. Request from President to the Board of Aldermen's office for the approval of Board Bill number 82 as amended. This ordinance authorizes the federal appropriations under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 in the amount of $39 million. Items presented for the first time. I'm sorry, let's stop there and discuss the deferred item from the last week's meeting, if possible. Is there a motion or is there discussion on this item?
I would move that we adopt the item deferred from the last meeting as printed.
Great. I know that there's been some discussion about Board Bill 82. And before we entertain a second, I'd like to have some conversation about that if possible.
Okay.
Great.
But would you want to do a motion in a second so it's properly before us, and then we can discuss it and decide where we go from there? Because you still wouldn't be forced to take a vote from there. So it's up to you.
I'll second it so that we can have discussion on item deferred, because I was the one chiefly concerned about it having the money that is available to be given to the citizens. I wanted it to be available June 1st. So my second is to discuss to see if the board president, since I hadn't talked to him directly, but through Alderwoman Sharon Tyus, who did such an excellent job of communicating on behalf of the Board of Aldermen, and what our main concern is, and I guess I am discussing that now that we have a second. So I thank you for allowing me to continue with my comments. June 1st date, I recommended that we make available to the public as soon as possible the applications. In other words, I wanted the application process to be done so that the public could apply for the funds that's made available much earlier than they were able to do for funds in the past. I felt we had gotten through, after having had a year now with these funds, that we had enough time to at least have an application prepared and ready to put on the streets for our citizens, our small businesses, our not-for-profits and so forth, to have them in hand June 1st. So, Mr. President, you have the floor if you agree with that. In addition, I'll just put everything out there real simple, just nothing major, just something as public officials that all three of us are and have been elected into these offices as public officials. I'm saying let's do the work that puts the opportunity in front of the people earlier rather than later. So that's the main crust. There was some language in the board bill as is printed that brought it back to the Board of Aldermen at least 3 times. And I was hoping that could be removed so that we could get all the approval processes out of the way, except for the normal one that says if it's in my ward, then that alderman should have a say. I'm totally in agreement with that. I want the board, alderwomen and aldermen to have a say in their ward.
Okay.
But I would just wanted to give you the opportunity, Mr. President, just to see what you think.
Well, I completely agree. We've been shocked at the slowness of the movement of the first money. But as you know, Madam Comptroller, the Board of Aldermen, we appropriate those funds. And after they are appropriated, it's up to the mayor's office and her departments to create the application process, to take in applicants and all of those various different things. That's not a job of the legislative branch. I would like it if they could finish the application next week. You know, if we adopt this today and the mayor's office commits to it, it's totally up to them. But if they can get this application process next week, they should do it, right? This measure has been before this body now for 200 days. Nearly a year, we've talked about sending funds to North St. Louis. And no other funds, you know, even in the last meeting, the $96 million were for capital improvement funds. No other funds have they've been the kind of hurdles that are thrown up when we come to the funds for North St. Louis. So I'm in 100% agreement with you. Let's get that application process done as soon as possible. If there's anything my office can do to assist the mayor's office in doing it, it's uncustomary. That's not the way it's done at all. You know, that is an executive function. That function, you know, belongs and resides within the mayor's office, and it's her power to move it. And the citizens need it. They need it moved. But you know, we've waited a long time to see resources go to North St. Louis. And until we send those resources to North St. Louis, I don't know that I have appetite of doing much of anything else in terms of moving any of these COVID funding. It is that serious to me. So I'm asking that today that we, you know, don't put up any more roadblocks. Let's just give the money that's going to North St. Louis the same agreement and the same, you know, approach it with the same enthusiasm that everything else before this body has been approached. Again, it is the only money, COVID relief funding that continues to come under scrutiny, not by the Board of Aldermen, not by any other body, except for when we come to the Board of E&A. So I'm just asking both of you all to join with me and do the right thing for North St. Louis Day. But if you want to ask the mayor, you know, if she will commit to getting the application together sooner, she's the one that can answer you. Those departments don't work for me at all whatsoever.
Well, if allowed to respond. So I definitely look forward to getting the board bill passed today out of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, as well as the board making important changes to the bill's language in the days ahead. As the comptroller stated, she raised some questions and concerns about the way we can best implement Board Bill 82 to get money to North St. Louis to begin the long process of reversing decades of intentional disinvestment from our communities. As the first mayor in over 20 years to be born, raised, and still live in North St. Louis, I understand how important it is to get this right. These are federal dollars, and we cannot get this wrong. Last week, President Reed, you asked what it would take to support this bill, and Comptroller Green raised questions around the language and implementation, which is why I work with my team and the comptroller, as well as Alderwoman Sharon Tyus, to suggest some changes on the implementation side of this bill. So I'm ready to vote to pass it today with the recommendation that President Reed and the Board of Aldermen adjust the language in this bill to streamline the implementation process and use these federal dollars in the most effective way possible. My ultimate goal is to ensure that the money gets to North St. Louis and stays in North St. Louis. That's why, in line with guidance from the U.S. Department of Treasury, I'm recommending only the following changes. They are very minor, but we discussed these over the weekend, and I'm sure that they've been reviewed with you. So first, the bill says that the money goes to SLDC. The money has to flow through the CDA, not SLDC. The city councilor's office is in agreement that the money cannot go directly to SLDC as it is a separate nonprofit. Administering the funds through CDA will allow the funds to get out the door faster in a more compliant manner. Second, we should streamline the language to make it easier to partner with our library system in an efficient manner. And before I go any further, I want to be very clear on the process we're following. If we vote to recommend this bill today, we are voting for it with the changes that were suggested. That means if the bill does change with our recommendations today, it will need to come back before ENA. So let's get this done. So the changes that we are recommending on page 5, line 18, strike through SLDC and insert in lieu of SLDC, the Community Development Administration. And it will say CDA shall work with the St. Louis Development Corporation to manage the funds pursuant to a subrecipient agreement, setting out the proposed fund uses and their eligibility under ARPA compliance and reporting requirements, thus forth and thus up and thereon. Yes.
Go ahead. As soon as you finish that, I have a couple questions, but go ahead.
Right. On page 7, line 4, the city councilor shall approve the form and produce standardized language for the application of these funds. Applications shall be ready for applicants by June 1st, and the application shall not be used for application, shall be produced by both digital and paper, and will partner with the library to train people at the library to apply for all grants. The applications, again, shall be paper and digital. And I think the other change was a simple on the qualified provider and the changing shall to may for a qualified provider in that language. But again, if the bill does not change with our recommendations today, it'll need to come back before ENA.
All right. Well, before we go any further, I guess my question is, how do we send $20 million to SLDC in the first round of funding?
It went through CDA.
But the language in the bill sent it through SL. It eventually goes to CDA. It goes to CDA by going through it goes to SLDC by going through CDA. That's just a transfer that we make here at the Board of ENA whenever we do it.
May I suggest that we get clarification from the attorney, because we are not attorneys as we sit here, and we know for the recommendation was made through the city councilor, and I'm hoping that we can all three accept the city councilor's recommendation so that we can move forward.
No, I'm not debating that point. What I'm saying is, on any of the other funding that we've approached, that has not been something that's been brought up. It's only on this money that you're bringing that up.
You brought that up.
But ultimately for it to reside, if we are saying that ultimately it's going to reside in SLDC, we all know how it gets to SLDC. We know that it goes to CDA.
Actually, what you're saying is partly correct, Mr. President. You are the first one that it starts with, the legislation. We all know that and we agree with that. But when you get over to the technical part as to how the, and I'm speaking, hoping that the city council will say what I don't get correct here, but it's just a matter of the CDA being a conduit that's in the actual city administration. SLDC does not lie within the city administration. Sheena, could you please chime in so that Mr. President will understand that it's just a technical, but it has nothing to do with taking away anything from what he's saying.
No, I'm just so we're clear, I understand that, but please, Sheena, could you weigh in? Sorry.
Yeah, I think we're at the point where we can effectuate it the way that everybody knows it is intended to be done, but SLDC is not a city department and CDA is. And so that is the recommendation, that it go through CDA and that the language reflect that instead of doing it on the back end.
All right, but ultimately to get to SLDC, it goes through CDA. So the board bill says that SLDC is the end recipient, just like the previous board bill said, right? But it's just being brought up on this board bill, which is what I continue to point out, is that it always seems to be another hurdle when we get to the funds related to North St. Louis. But I guess nobody's wants to talk about the fact that we just sent $20 million in the first round to SLDC in this same manner. But what we're talking about now is that we will have to have another board meeting, right, along with the one that we plan to have, to amend the bill, because we can't amend it and pass it out in the same day. It doesn't work like that. So we're going to have to schedule multiple meetings over at the Board of Aldermen to make this change that will ultimately end up in the same way, because the only way it would not end up the same way is if somehow the money was transferred directly to SLDC, but it would not be transferred directly to SLDC.
So I'm going to chime in and say it's a time issue when you say the same way, meaning that, a year later, funds did finally get to the recipients and funds got to the public. 4 days ago, when we had a meeting, last Wednesday, I said, why don't we postpone a short 4 days so that the people can get the application in less than 2 months? So I'm trying to change what we did wrong. And I hear you, Mr. President, don't get me wrong. Sheena just said everything we did was on the back end of the language because we didn't have it in the language. I heard her say that, we all heard that. So she said, instead of it being on the back end, since SLDC is not a city department, let's do it right on the front end so that 2 months from now, the applications will be on the street. And so I don't care how many extra meetings we have to do, let's do the meetings now so that by June 1st, the applications are on the street. So I apologize to you, that's gonna take some extra time on the front end, but let's do the front end because it is North St. Louis. I live in North St. Louis. Let's do it right now. You don't live in North St. Louis, Mr. President, so I want you to understand that you're talking to a woman that grew up in North St. Louis, went to school in North St. Louis, stayed in St. Louis, lived in St. Louis. I don't have a carpet bag. All right. Now, I am not going to tell you that I'm going to pass this out without asking you if you are going to decide to do the right thing. I want you to do the right thing. That's it. You are the president of the board. It's in your court after we pass this today. If you choose not to, that's you. And you can just tell us yes or no. We're going to leave here today with your promise. We hope that you give us a promise that you're going to do the right thing. If you don't do it, you don't do it. And then it'll be Christmas again before the applications get out there to the people. But we're asking you to please go in, change the language. It is an inconvenience, but it's us inconvenience, not the public. Let us not inconvenience North St. Louis. Please don't do that. I'm asking you. You're the president. You have all the power. You're trying to mix words and making it look like we're holding something up when you know it's you and it's always been you. Do the right thing, Mr. President. Don't give me the crap. We've got language in the bill that brings it back to the board 3 times. And you're telling me that's going to be a hardship for you to change. I don't get it. You do the right thing or else.
Look,
here's I think we can get somebody to do it better. That's what my or else is. Somebody else can do this job better if you decide that it's too hard for you.
I don't even know where to start. Well, first off, I want to make sure that we don't totally get way down the rabbit hole and off in the left field, because there's so much that continues to be thrown out there. But I'm not going to take the responsibility for the 200 days that have been lost. I'm just going to tell the people that if you want to know why we're sitting here 200 days later, go watch the first meetings. While other cities were building luxury hotels with this money, this board right here said that it would be illegal for us to send those funds to North St. Louis. Those same funds, the US Treasury came back and told us we were absolutely in good standing and that money could be used in North St. Louis. So that's why we're sitting here today. But I'm trying to move on past that. I'm trying to, take from where we are and move to this new place, because it's important that we get these funds out. But at the same time, I can't, it would be disingenuous and unfair to the people who may see this meeting later, and they take away a fair, unfair representation of what has happened thus far. And they also may take away, go away with a misunderstanding that somehow we put a measure in the board bill that requires it to go back before the board several times before things are approved. Our city's charter dictates what it takes to pass a board bill. This board bill will go through the same process every board bill has gone through, including the money, some of the board bills that are on this agenda today, the airport bills, everything goes through the same process to be legal board bills, and that can actually become ordinances in the city of St. Louis. This board bill directs $37 million to North St. Louis. The changes that we're talking about making, if they make you all happy, then they make you happy. But all of you, Madam Comptroller, you, myself, and the mayor, and also some of the department heads that are here that have been around for a while, they understand that this is all a ruse, because quite frankly, the mayor has control over when she's going to create the application. You and I don't have control over that. By putting a June 1st deadline on it, that gives her until June 1st. But guess what? She can probably have it done in a couple of weeks. I mean, none of this stuff is new. So, if we really want to get it out on the streets faster, let's pick 2 weeks from now and say she needs to have the application done 2 weeks from now. And then that would actually be doing something, right? But short of that, that power resides over there. The money that has not made it out to the residents of the city of St. Louis, Madam Comptroller, that's not your fault. That's not my fault. That's solidly and completely on the administration, because not one alderman after we passed the board bill, not one alderman held up $1 going out of the door of the city of St. Louis. Not one alderman has. So it's unfair to put that kind of indictment on them. But again, the reason, I'm trying not to take this meeting in a different direction, because ultimately, I think it's absolutely essential that we pass something out of here today that can help the residents of the city of St. Louis. But in doing so,
we're waiting so we can pass this bill.
But in doing so, let's not put these false indictments in place so that people believe that something different has transpired up until this point. So with that, let's talk about the amendments that you all have.
Board Bill 82 is online. Anyone in our city can pull it up. They can go to page 9 and they can look at line 5 through 11. They will find 3 approval processes that come back to the Board of Aldermen.
It doesn't come back to the
I am
board.
going to read them if you don't believe me.
Please do.
So page 9, line 5, Mr. President, do you want me to read it or not?
Yes, I
Now,
do.
I can just trust that if we pass this, that you'll do the right thing.
No, it's up to you. Please read it.
Line 5, these functions may be outsourced by SLDC with the approval by the Board of Aldermen through a resolution. That's one approval process. Line 7, grants above $100,000, this is in North St. Louis, will require the following 2 separate approvals. So I've got 3 fingers up, that's 3. 1, 2, 3 approvals. The alderman elected to represent the ward lies within, that's 1. And then the second approval of the 2 is a majority of all aldermen that represent the affected quarter. So that's 3. So I recommend that this whole section be removed, because these are hurdles that only in North St. Louis, Mr. President, that you're asking them that they have to jump over 3 hurdles. The first one is by resolution. The second one is by the alderman that's elected in the ward. And the third one is by a majority of all aldermen. So if that's not 3 hurdles, I don't know what it is. It's in Board Bill 82, page 9 of 10, as recommended by Reed. And as I understand it, Mr. Reed, your name is the only one that's on this bill. There are no other aldermen joining you on this bill. And I did tell you that we worked tirelessly this weekend with Alderwoman Tyus. She canceled everything that she had going for the weekend to help me to understand how we could get the application process and remove the hurdles of approval processes that's in this bill. She said that she has spoken to you over a number of hours this weekend and that she believed in you. She believed that you would be available and trustworthy to make these changes to bring to the community. So that's all we can do today is believe in you, Mr. President. I'm here today, I'm trusting you. And I pray that you can bring the changes so that the applications can get to the community. That's all I can do today, sir.
Right. Now let me explain what that section is. So as you know, right now, when major projects happen within the ward boundaries, it requires a letter from the board, from the member, the representative within that area, a letter. So when you say it comes back to the board, that doesn't come back to the board. It's just like any other major project within those ward boundaries right now. Whereas if SLDC is involved, SLDC requests a letter from that alderperson. It also, one of the things, the reason why the city of St. Louis as a whole begun doing that stuff that years ago is because then you have community input on what's happening in and around that community. The alder people that represent those areas that we're looking to send these funds to, overwhelmingly, those aldermen would want to see that stay in place. Because why? Because then they have some involvement with them, between them and their community, as to what's getting ready to happen in their community, right? Early on, when we first looked at the first pot of money, there was a big push to put homeless tent encampments in parts of the wards, and specifically in wards in North St. Louis. So if this funding is in place and the provisions that are currently in place for all other major projects, with no matter whether you're North St. Louis, South St. Louis, or Central Corridor, or they ask an alderman for a letter, then all of a sudden, a provision that was in place so that that community can have involvement, that provision would be removed. That community's voice would be taken out of the equation. And then it would just be up to some administrative person as to what was going to happen. So that provision, if you ask an alderman, you can call any of them, ask them for a letter. I bet you'll have a letter within 10 minutes on on any project that makes sense. But guess what else happens? They then go out and inform their constituents about things that are happening and what's happening in the community, and they can get input from them and work with SLDC to fine tune what's happening. That's not an additional hurdle. That's a safeguard. That's community involvement.
Madam Mayor, call for the vote.
I will call for the vote on Board Bill number 82 as amended, with the suggested amendments and technical changes. Ms. Green, please call the roll. All those indicate by voice vote of aye.
Madam Mayor, technically,
Aye.
yeah, hold on for a second. No, because I want to make sure we have this technically correct, right? So technically, those are two separate questions. You have to vote on sending your recommendations to the board, or to me, right, the sponsor, your recommendations of these changes, right?
That is within this motion.
No, but buckling those into the same motion. So you have to, your recommendations have to be separate from the bill itself, right? So you're saying that you're gonna, vote to.
Mr.
send the
President,
bill
how would you like
with
it to be?
How would you like us to do?
How
All
would
right,
you
so-
like it, since you have, and I apologize, I see that Alderman Jeffrey Boyd also joined you on this bill. Can you give us direction as to how you want to see this return?
All right, so we need to vote, to send the board bill back to the Board of Aldermen, and then vote, and then a second vote that says these are the recommended changes to this board bill for approval, right? For its approval.
So would you like to make the motion?
I move that we adopt line item 22.00.
I'm sorry, before you do that, Ms. Hamilton, is that the correct way for us to handle this?
Well, that's one way to do it. President Reed, if you're amenable to it, maybe you could accept a friendly amendment from Comptroller Green as to those suggested changes, since you have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, but they really need to be separated, because otherwise it's the Board of E&A amending the board bill, and the Board of E&A cannot amend, as you know, they can't amend, the bill. We have to do any amendments have to be done at the Board.
That's why we want to trust you, Mr. President. We at this board are trusting you that you would bring a real recommended by Board of Estimate and Apportionment ordinance to the bill. That's what this is about. The first line of this particular board bill says, as an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. And then it goes on to authorize those what to do. So we are the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, and I heard the City Council just say a friendly amendment gets done what you're saying, as opposed to a two-step in one step. So why don't I then go ahead and make the motion that we would approve the Board Bill 82 as presented, along with the friendly amendment that I'm making. That is simple, it gets it done. And unless you have no understanding of it, Mr. President, because I do understand that the board bill is not amended at this board at all. The Board of Estimate of Apportionment will not amend. That hard work gets done at the Board of Aldermen, as you've stated right now, and I agree with you. The point that I'm making is that the amendment has been made clear today in this board that we would like to see you do at the Board of Aldermen. And of course, in the paperwork that we're all speaking about, you will receive it at the board as to the changes. As I stated earlier, Alderwoman Ty is working with the Board of Aldermen's lawyer to get the language so that they're ready to go. They're ready with the language that the friendly amendment already talks about. The mayor just read from that language that the Board of Aldermen's lawyer did. We worked hard over the weekend on the Friday, because remember, our meeting was Wednesday. We worked Thursday mornings, Friday. We worked Saturday evening at 5:30. And then we turned around and worked yesterday, which was Monday. And we knew that you were in conference with Alderwoman Tyus. I was on a conference with Alderwoman Pam Boyd. I was also on a Zoom with the First Ward. The First Ward understands that this is not something that's difficult. It's just about working together. I worked also on Saturday with another group that met at 4:00 in the afternoon. So yes, we have worked with groups that understand the friendly amendment that I'm offering. It is our hope and our prayer today, Mr. President of the board, that you will also join us. And we trust that you can get this done. So that is my motion. I hope you can second that.
So,
I will second your friendly
Thank you,
amendment.
Madam Mayor.
well,
It's been
hold on a
properly
second. Hold
seconded.
on a second. please, let's just take a moment, make sure we get this thing right. It's absolutely essential that we get it right. The Board of ENA needs to send over recommendations, essentially to me, the sponsor of the bill, right? Send over recommendations. And the board bill itself, right? You say, pass this board bill, boom. These are the recommendations, recommended changes that are tethered to this bill, right? So that's the way to do it and make it, in appropriate fashion. Otherwise, if you keep it, and I will put it like this: if you keep them buckled together as one amendment, right? I'll vote for it, but I want this board and everybody watching to know that doesn't mean that I solidly support all those changes yet. And the reason why I have not had a chance to float any of these changes past all the members who have to vote on it. So if we have to come back again, the Board of ENA, if you all want to come back in, we come back in. So
we will come back again in order to get it right.
Either way.
In order to get it right to spend in North St. Louis, we will absolutely come
Well,
back.
again, it was right 200 days ago, and that's
It was not right 200 days ago, and we're not gonna, it was not right. It was not right, and the bill that is before us right now, the bill that is before us right now is better. And we're making these final tweaks and technical changes in order to make it right per guidelines from US Treasury. And I know that you want to spend this money in the right way. We don't want to be open to clawbacks from the federal government. Now, do we, President Reed? I don't think so. So there's a motion on the floor.
The money's going to be spent in the right way.
In the amendment, and it has been seconded.
North St. Louis.
There's a motion and an amendment, and it has been seconded to adopt the request number 22-007 with the proposed amendments. Ms. Green, please call the roll, signify by a voice vote of saying aye.
Mayor Jones,
Aye.
Comptroller Green,
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Now we will move on with our agenda for items presented for the first time. Item number 1, request from the Comptroller's Office for approval of contracts and leases for various city departments as listed in Exhibit A. Item number 2, request from the Acting Director of Airports for approval of board bill to be determined. This ordinance approves an amendment to extend the Air Service Incentive Program through fiscal year 2024 and allocate an additional $1 million. This amendment increases the amount authorized by ordinance number 71288 on December 4th, 2020 from $2.4 million to $3.4 million. This board bill replaces board bill number 172, which passed in the 2021-2022 automatic session. Item number 3, request from the Acting Director of Airports for approval of board bill to be determined. This ordinance approves the transfer of $13,727,769 from the airport's debt stabilization fund to the airport's revenue fund to mitigate rates on an annual basis in accordance with the airport use and lease agreement. This board bill replaces board bill number 173, which passed in the 2021-2022 automatic session. Item number 4, request from the Acting Director of Airports for approval of board bill to be determined. This ordinance authorizes the transfer of $1 million from the Airport Development Fund to the Airport Contingency Fund and from the Airport Contingency Fund to the Airport Revenue Fund to support the Air Service Incentive Program. This board bill replaces board bill number 174, which passed in the 2021-2022 automatic session. Item number 5, request from the Acting Director of Airports for approval of board bill to be determined. This ordinance authorizes the amendment to ordinance number 54999 adopted March 19, 1968, pertaining to the process used to procure concession contracts at the airport. This board bill replaces board bill number 187, which passed in the 2021-2022 automatic session. And item number 6, request from the Board of Public Service for approval to add one executive director of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council position to their table of organization. Are there any additional items to be added to the items presented for the first time? Hearing none, I will approve a motion to adopt items 1 through 6.
I move that we adopt items 1 through 6, Madam Mayor.
Second. It's been moved and properly seconded to adopt items 1 through 6. Ms. Green, please call the roll. Please vote by signifying a voice vote of aye.
Mayor Jones,
Aye.
Comptroller Green,
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, before you do that, there was an item that was brought before the board that would move some monies to the police real-time crime center. We did have some shootings that came before my attention in North St. Louis last evening, and I believe again this morning. I think we may want to consider any type of reallocation that we can do for the use for public safety. I don't know if the public safety director is on that may want to speak on it. If he's not, I believe that that's something we want to do earlier rather than later when it comes to the public safety of the city of St. Louis as we go into the spring season, that if it means coming back for a special E&A, if we don't take this up today, that we will make sure that we're covering all bases when it comes to public safety in the city of St. Louis. And I believe when I'm speaking of it, those dollars that have been previously appropriated but are yet unspent, that we can reallocate them so that they can go to the areas in our city that need help with public safety. And so I just wanted to make that point that I'm prepared today to accept some of that. But if the others are not, then we can come back at a later time, hopefully prior to our next meeting, which is not until 3 weeks from now.
Right, I was concerned that these were brought before us at the last minute, i.e. last night. My staff and I have been trying to review them since they've been brought before us. We've known that we've had this meeting on the books since last week. Bringing things to us at the last minute isn't always the most productive way to get things done.
Absolutely.
But if, I don't know, is there an amendment to the agenda for the items that you discussed?
I will make myself available for another special meeting, Madam Mayor, so that once your staff has had time to review and the president of the board can work with us once again to make sure that we're going to reallocate these dollars so that they can be spent on behalf of public safety and other areas as necessary in the city of St. Louis.
Great. Well, we will have our assistants get together to schedule another meeting to discuss this these particular spending items.
Thank you so much. Move to adjourn.
Second, the moved and properly seconded. All those in favor signify by a voice vote of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Thank you.
adjourned. Thank you.